Should you see Shazam?
Grab a taco, pull up a chair. We're going to talk about that.
Welcome everybody to Tex-Mex Nerd Feed.
I'm Tex.
And I'm Mex.
Today we're going to be giving our review on the Shazam movie. We will first be giving a spoiler-free review, and later on be discussing the spoilers of the film.
Yeah, we will notify you when we get into spoilers. So, the way we are trying to determine if you should go see Shazam is based on a couple different factors. If you are the kind of person who doesn't even know that comic books exist, that you don't read them, you don't acknowledge them whatsoever, and you just like superhero movies, if you are a casual superhero fan, then I think that you should definitely go see it.
Yeah, that is a good movie overall.
If you are a moderate comic book fan where you don't buy every issue, which I fall into the category of that because I'm poor. Yeah. I can't buy every issue, but because you appreciate the source material, you will appreciate some of the little things that Shazam has to offer. If you are a die-hard, hardcore comic book fan, I would say that you should go see it.
Be prepared.
But be prepared that there is one specific thing that they do a disservice to the source material.
So, starting this off, what did you think of the story in general?
The story altogether was very reminiscent of the New 52 origin and the reboot. It wasn't page for page, but there were specific things from the comic book that went panel for panel. The hug scene occurred in the comic books. It occurred in school versus in the house.
Okay.
So it was just like small differences, but very close to being panel for panel. And then like they did change a couple things because they were missing a couple big factors in the entire New 52 origin. So it is very reminiscent of New 52, but it is its own story.
They do their own thing.
Some parts make sense, kind of. Some parts they try to make sense and they just don't work out the way I think they wanted it to.
Yeah.
What did you think of the main character?
Of Billy or Shazam?
Let's start with Billy.
Billy, I think they played him well. Yeah. The actor played the role very well. Yeah. As well as the rest of the kids did.
Yeah, the entire dynamic between the foster children. Definitely. My favorite has to be Freddy.
Yeah, he was pretty great.
Freddy is just fantastic. Billy, the kid who played Billy, like you said, he did a spot-on job playing a young Billy back then. What did you think of Shazam then? Zachary Levi as
He did
Shazam.
Fantastic as well. Playing a kid in an adult's body.
Yeah, and I think that's the big dynamic is that like in Shazam, Billy is essentially just like a 15-year-old boy in a superhero's body, an adult superhero's body. And so you can see that in the comic books when he shows up, you can see that in cartoons or whatever when he shows up, he is that kind of person. Like if you watch Young Justice, he connects better with the sidekick Young Justice team more than he does the Justice League team because he is just a child.
For that aspect, Zachary Levi does a very good job at pulling that off.
So we did the what to expect in Shazam video before, and the origin of the main character. What did you think of that?
I like how they did it. I think they played it off to the comic books with their own twist.
Okay, yeah. So, as we mentioned in the previous video, that Shazam, the Wizard Shazam, would put the applicants, the potential champions, through a test, seeing if they are pure of heart. And like we said before, that Billy was the one to show the wisdom and knowledge that you're not going to find that. Like, it's just not. And they kind of did the same thing. The only difference is what the test is.
Yeah, it was dumb.
The test leads into spoiler territory, so we will discuss that in the later part. But essentially, they changed something up dramatically that we didn't really like. It didn't work, but I can see why they did it. like I said, key factors that they didn't have.
The test involved.
Yeah. So we'll go into the villain.
I did not like the villain at all. Not because of story changes or this or that. Not saying that doesn't contribute, but I don't think Mark Strong played a very good role.
There were times where he was very...
Let me reword that. I don't think Mark Strong was the problem. I think the writing was the problem for the character.
Okay, yeah. The plot just...
very lackluster.
It just existed just to have an existing plot.
Yeah.
It's just there just because Shazam needs somebody to... Yeah. So there is a deeper level to it that goes into the character's character's history a little bit more. And we will discuss that in the spoiler version as well. But just know that the villain is lackluster, not what you get in the comic books. We'll leave it at that.
Overall, the movie is a foster kid movie.
Yeah, it definitely revolves around the foster kid aspect, the theme around being a foster kid, what a lot of them have to go through, and when they finally find a good home, which is the home of the Vasquez family, and Billy is having a hard time coming to terms with that.
It is the cliche form of a movie.
But it is very feel-good. It is very funny. The moments between Freddy and Shazam
they're terrific.
Amazing. And the dynamic between those two is just enough to make you want to go see the movie, in my opinion. Like, if you just like those comedy, family-friendly, feel-good type movies, definitely go see it, especially because of those two.
However, you bring up an interesting point of being family-friendly. There are a couple moments in this movie that were pretty, I won't say disturbing, but the imagery was pretty horrifying.
Oh, that is true. So, I would say, if you want to show your kids the movie, you know your child better than anybody else does, so view it first and see like if these couple scenes that are a little bit graphic are too much for your child, because there are...
I know if I went to see this as a kid, there's one specific moment that I would have had nightmares from for a little while.
Yeah, in an office, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So we're on the same page. So, for the normies, for the casual fans, definitely go see it if you just like a good superhero movie.
Yeah.
For the
hardcore comic book loving fans,
or even just casual comic book fans,
or that,
we will say wait till we get into the spoiler version, which is coming up in 3, 2, 1.
Spoilers ahead.
Okay, so we are back. We are here with the spoiler version of Shazam. Spoiler review of Shazam. We are going to try to take this in chronological order so we don't get mixed up. We will get mixed up, so try to follow along. So we start out in the beginning when we were watching it. 2 minutes in, I turn to my girlfriend and say, I'm pissed already. Then your girlfriend turns to me and says, hey, he's pissed already. So it turns out...
It starts off very poorly, in my opinion. We start off on a young Dr. Savannah in the car with his brother and his father. And he is tested by the wizard Shazam.
Yeah. He was a potential candidate to be a champion of the Living Lightning.
The test, which we mentioned earlier, how they changed it, was garbage in my opinion.
Yeah. We're going to get this out of the way right now. He wasn't shocked in the eye.
He was not shocked in the eye.
So
he was potentially shot in the eye, but he was not shocked.
Yeah. So what there was, the test was the 7 deadly sins. They are a known Shazam villain for the fact that to keep away the 7 deadly sins is the whole reason the champion exists.
Right.
So the 7 deadly sins are pretty much turned into statues. The only thing that works is their eyes, and apparently their eyes are how they communicate. So they are in the Rock of Eternity, and the test is the 7 deadly sins try to tempt you into taking an eye.
Yeah.
It's I forget exactly what they called it, but it was
I don't remember either right
blue
now.
glowy eye.
They don't even tempt them that hard.
No, he's
They're
just
like, hey, if you take that eye, You have all our power.
And then Savannah's like, well, shit, here we go.
To which Shazam slaps him on the head and says, nah.
Get out of here. So, it was in the car scene when we noticed that it was about to take him to the Rock of Eternity. You start seeing the symbols, the runes and stuff.
And the freezing of the glass on the outside of the car. Which is when we started getting upset.
That's when we were like, well, at first I thought maybe he was going to become like the Black Adam, like the DCEU version of Black Adam. They didn't do that, thankfully.
No.
But
they kicked him out, put him back in the real world, and ended up having him freak out and potentially killing his father, which it turns out he did not.
Yeah.
As a car crash occurred.
Yeah. So they kind of just led into Savannah's temptation towards magic. They didn't.
They found they piqued his interest into finding Shazam and the deadly sins again.
So he was an avid follower of magic since he was young.
Which they played that part correctly.
Well,
not correctly. I mean, they gave him the hunger for magic.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, as we know before, the reason he wanted to do it was to save his family. This time he only wants the magic so he can kill his family.
Yeah.
So he wants revenge from his family for being assholes. They're just terrible people. Mm-hmm. So he's tempted with the eye. So he dedicates his life. He does become a doctor of something. They never mention what it is. They never display his superior intellect. Because
he has his own office in this building where people recognize him, but everybody's upset whenever he goes into any other place.
Yeah. It's like he's supposed to be there, but he's not supposed to be there. He's supposed to be there, just not show his face. I don't know. So they don't really display his superior intellect whatsoever. They call him a doctor. We don't know what he's a doctor in. He doesn't. I mean, kind of. They display in the fact that he was able to start this witch hunt to find,
I suppose,
the wizard.
Yeah.
But I mean.
But it wasn't even his witch hunt.
Yeah, that was grasping at straws because he really just manipulated other scientists, like psychologists.
Of mass hysteria.
Yeah.
But he was really looking for stuff. And then the doctor was upset that he was actually doing that. So,
yeah.
In the room at the same time. Doesn't make a lot of sense whatsoever. This is the plot mistakes that we were talking about earlier, where he was just thrown in there because Shazam needs a villain.
Yeah, that's about it. And I think that throwing him in there was probably not their first choice. It kind of seems like because he was thrown in there the way he was, that they probably did have plans for Black Adam. It's just The Rock is starting his own athletic gear company.
He's doing a lot.
For Under Armour. He's doing movies, he's doing shows, he's doing everything. So if like you said he might already be slotted for Black Adam, he just might not have been able to do it at that time, and they didn't want to try to recast because of how popular of a decision it was to have him as Black Adam. So, to summarize on Dr. Savannah, they start out the movie with a disservice to the comic book origins and the source material. But I would say that is the whole Savannah being the main villain and Savannah being the changes to Savannah that there are, that is probably like going to be the reason for the later aspects that we don't like in the villain.
Everything.
So we will go into Billy.
Billy was a very good character in the way they played him out.
Yeah.
Like we said before.
So, I guess there really are no spoiler aspects to get into other than the fact that they changed his origin up in the fact that his parents didn't die and that's why he's orphaned.
Right, they just don't care about him.
Yeah, his father was arrested, left him before he was arrested, but then his father was arrested eventually, and then his mother just
didn't think she could support him and left him with police.
Yeah, just
a garbage mother.
He got lost at a carnival, and she found him with the police, and she was like, he's okay now. So I'm just gonna head out. I need lunch.
Which is another very poor plot point. Like, why even include that? Why not just make them die like in the comics. There's no reason. I mean, it gives Billy a subplot into trying to find his mother again.
Yeah.
But that's really just to lengthen the movie, it seems to me.
See, I think, like you said, it's a subplot. To me, it adds depth, especially when he does find her. And she essentially says, like, yeah, I just didn't want you. And then that's
gives him a reason to go back to his foster family.
Yeah, it gives him a reason to accept the foster family. So I did enjoy that. It pulled on my heartstrings. It was just hearing that. Like, I definitely teared up. So did my girlfriend. It was a powerful message that sometimes you do just have those kids who have parents who just do not care about them.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it. But he was able to find it in his heart to accept his foster family.
Yes.
So we talked about the dynamic between Billy and Freddy already. The dynamic between Billy and Mary. There isn't much, but there is a point in which he is Shazam, and Mary is crying as she's reading a letter and almost gets hit by a plow truck.
Right.
And then Shazam goes and saves her. And he starts talking to her as if he knows her.
Right.
And she gets confused and and then it kind of leads into the fact that they show Freddy and Shazam arguing on TV in the news, and they're like, wait a minute. And so they kind of put the pieces together as Darla Dudley, the little girl, already knows that Billy is Shazam.
The whole time. That was cute.
And Darla was one of my favorite parts as well.
Yeah,
she was just adorable. But yeah, so they kind of make it so that it's discoverable by the foster siblings that Billy is Shazam.
Yeah.
So then they all kind of come together to try to help one another and help Billy, which brings us to the second layer of the villain in the movie.
Before we get to the second layer, I want to backtrack 1 second to the problem I had with Shazam, the wizard, giving his power to Billy.
Okay, what's that?
Billy showed up after the bully fight with Freddy, showing that he had all the courage and bravery and whatnot to lead the bullies away from Freddy and to stand up for him. He came into Shazam's temple, the Rock of Eternity, and Shazam's like, hey, I'm old, you're good enough. Here you go. That's like we said before, that Billy was able to demonstrate that there is no pure of heart in the world today. They're like, instead of just showing his wisdom and saying like, oh yeah, this kid isn't what I was initially looking for, but he changed my mind. Yeah, no, they made a penis joke and off they went.
They did make a penis joke. I forgot about that. But yeah, he was just like, yeah, I guess you're gonna have to do. I'm about to die soon, and somebody needs to do something.
Yep.
So yeah, that was kind of, I didn't like that. And then, like you said, he puts his staff down and says, "Put your hand on my staff," and then Billy's like,
"Ew."
Like, oh yeah, he says, "Ew." So yeah, penis jokes aside, and that part aside, Billy does display his wisdom, and eventually. I guess that might have been a factor in the Wizard Shazam's decision to be like, "Hey, yeah, he's a good kid. Let's do this." But again, he still physically.
It didn't even seem like he knew Billy showed up. Like, he didn't mean for Billy to show up. He was sleeping.
Yeah, that's true. Because
he was just as surprised as Billy walking in.
Yeah, when Savannah walks in, he's like, Thaddeus Savannah, and so on and so forth, and he knows him for Billy. He's just like, what the heck is this kid doing here?
What did you think of how Shazam the Wizard looked?
He looked very close to New 52, but I mean,
I think he looked cheap. And the guy that plays Shazam, it looked just like him with this cheap white wig, big bushy eyebrows, and like a wizard costume they got from a Halloween or Spirit of Halloween store.
Yeah,
it didn't look good to me whatsoever.
I mean, to me in the comics, he doesn't really look that great either. He doesn't look like a big, like a grand, wise wizard or anything. He pretty much looks like a homeless person. It looks like he's got a bathrobe on almost. It's very close. I mean, it's not really a bathrobe, but it's. Altogether, he really is just a throwaway character anyway. He is. True. He's just there to give the powers to Billy and Black Adam. Well, colorless Amon.
with Shazam the Wizard giving Billy the power was because Savannah found out a way to get to the Rock of Eternity on his own accord by being in the office that he was in before, that we talked about. With the mass hysteria thing, they were recounting or talking to these people that have gone through the trials of Shazam, or being tempted by the 7 deadly sins, which I guess no one can really say no to.
Yeah, but I guess not.
But he found a way to get whatever runes he needs to transport to the Rock of Eternity. And for anybody that's still watching that wanted to know about that disturbing scene, it's his secretary, a doctor.
I think it was a doctor.
Yeah.
She was the one that was in the room.
Savannah writes the runes on a door frame that he has in his office. And as she touches these runes, she turns to ash and very violently looks at Savannah as her entire face burns away inside of her. Yeah. It was disturbing.
It was pretty disturbing. From that point on, Savannah goes through the doorway and he takes that eye that tempted him when he was younger.
Yes, Shazam didn't even try to stop him at that point.
I can't remember him doing anything. If he did try to do something, it wasn't significant.
No, stop, please.
No,
don't do that.
Then he takes the eye, and the 7 deadly sins that were encased in stone, the
stone falls away, and they look oddly similar to when they were encased in stone.
Yeah, they just look like living statues at that point.
Which you really have to break the rock away for that.
Yeah, they were very, very generic.
Yeah.
So like we were saying, Savannah is not the main villain of the movie.
The 7 deadly sins being a part of his body are
the main villain. So Savannah is still used as like a D-list character for a means to bigger enemies to come.
So when he puts the eye in his dome, the 7 deadly sins go into the eye, giving him powers which he knows how to use right away.
Yeah, I guess if they are giving him the powers and kind of,
I suppose they can speak to him and tell him how to use them. Sure. The first thing he does, which is also kind of disturbing, is he walks into a board meeting where his father and his brother are sitting, and just chucks his brother out a window.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying is like what I was saying in the spoiler-free part is when we get to that part, it's just like you can definitely feel that Savannah and his motives, he could make a good villain. Definitely not one to stack up against.
Not like that? I thought that was cheesy to me.
To throw your brother out of a window?
Yeah, just for like nothing. Like, hey, you bullied me when I was younger. There you go, you're dead now.
He still seems to bully him.
Well, sure.
But like, it's...
So there's a message for our children. Kill your bullies. Throw them out of a 15 or 20 story window.
Yeah,
even if it's your family.
He has those motives, and it's just kind of... That's what I mean. Like, nobody should ever really go and kill their bullies, and
right. Yeah, I guess that's
so. It's like
started the villain.
He went far from what the norm is. He would do what a villain would do. Yeah. Somebody who's been stomping on him since he was a kid. He throws his older brother out of a window, and he lets one of the sins just eat his father.
And it is in that moment that we see one of my least favorite parts of the movie. When the sins talk, they don't move their mouth at all. Their eyes just flash.
Even though they are no longer in stone,
they still have working mouths.
They still only use their eyes to communicate.
It is so just uninventive to me. Even this computer graphics for the sins was just poor.
Yeah, it was. The CGI was not good for the sins, and just the decisions they made, like, you know what, it's gonna take a couple more minutes to animate their mouths to look like they're talking.
Yeah.
So just make their eyes glow. People will know it's the same thing anyway.
Lack of creativity. There was some creativity to the look of the sins in their own right, that they match what sin they portray in some length, but still.
Which is pretty funny, because Lust in the comics is a female, and she is kind of designed to look lustuous, I guess.
Yeah.
And so they, even in the movie, they kind of recognize that. They acknowledge it when Billy's like, lust, I thought you'd be a lot more attractive, or I thought you'd be hotter, or something like that. So they do acknowledge what they've done. I don't know why they didn't acknowledge it before and say, hey, you know what, let's do something good with these sins and make them look like individuals, make them represent what they do in the comics, something like that. But they just look like differently shaped gargoyles who have come to life.
Pretty much that's it. But
getting away from the main villains and Billy, we now have the 7 deadly sins introduced, and that's why the wizard is just like, you know what, the sins are gone now, so I just gotta pick somebody. I guess if those were his means to a test to see if the champion was good enough, if they're gone, he can't test anybody anymore.
I guess that's true.
So you would think
that's
that
why he passed them off. But then he gives a history lesson to Billy on why he's kind of given up and choosing Billy.
Yeah. So he kind of explains that back in the day, he made this guy a champion who went and released the deadly sins, the 7 deadly sins, on man, and like for his own selfish reasons, and was not a good guy. And that's essentially it. But we know from the comics
that's Black Adam.
What happens, that is Black Adam. And we know from the comics is what actually happens is that Black Adam's nephew, Amon, was chosen to be the champion because he was found to be good of heart. It was Amon's decision to also make Adam a champion of lightning, and then Adam killed his nephew.
Yeah.
That's a lot more depth, rather than just saying, oh, I made a mistake.
Yep.
We get a history of Black Adam that is already incorrect, but
has potential, I suppose.
I guess you can look past it. That's one of the small things. Obviously, these are the small things that give a little bit more depth to somebody. So whereas Billy's parents were just dead in the comics, they added more depth with the history of the father in prison and mother not wanting him. So that's just one of those things where the history of Black Adam could have more depth, but they just kind of decided, we'll just take the easy road and spare us a couple words, a little bit of breath, and just say, instead of, hey, I made a nephew and then he turned we'll just say, hey, we just made him a bad guy.
He's a bad guy.
We made a bad guy, let's try to make a good guy this time.
So after we have that, we have Savannah recognized as the villain. We have Shazam giving his powers to Billy. Billy gets the powers and starts experimenting with him, which was hilarious.
Yeah, the sequence in which Billy and Freddy are just kind of trying to figure out his powers and test them and practice them and so on and so forth is great. Like I said before, the dynamic between those two people is just hilarious.
It was fantastic.
And there was one issue that we all saw immediately when they were testing the powers was on the half pipe scene when he was trying to fly. The CGI was absolutely
horrendous.
Garbage. It was terrible. And it's definitely noticeable that it's fake. Obviously, nobody can really fly, but it's that's the whole point of a superhero movie, is to take you into a fantasy world where these things can happen, and then they're like just with how terrible that CGI was. It was pretty. I don't know why they would have used a half pipe to begin with. It's just, I think that was their issue, to try to make it look natural going down a half pipe and then back up.
Right.
If they would have had a skateboard and tried to like jump off the board,
a lot easier.
Yeah, I think that would have been a lot more fluid, but that's just what they did was not good, and
it didn't work out.
There were a couple situations in which the CGI was not great. That was the one that stood out, and seems like lack of conviction to making the 7 deadly sins believable was the other one.
Another one that I noticed pretty heavily, Savannah and Shazam ended up fighting in a mall, and they're both flying through this mall scene, and it looked bad to me, like cardboard cut out in front of stores level bad.
I didn't even notice that. I did notice that like when Billy first learns how to fly, it didn't look great, but I don't think that was CGI. I think that was them purposefully trying to like show that Billy has no idea what the heck he's doing.
Yeah.
But that's what I chalked it up to. Maybe it actually was bad CGI, and that's just what I thought it was. But I don't, like I said,
Could be the other way around too.
I didn't notice it. Yeah.
So Shazam fights Savannah for the first time.
Yeah, and it doesn't go the way anybody would expect, really. I expected him to try a little bit more.
The worst part of that whole fight scene to me was after the scene in the office, or the board meeting where he kills his father and brother. The Sins are like, hey, Shazam found somebody else, you should go find him. He's like, alright. And then he finds him.
Yeah.
There's no explanation, nothing, you should find him, okay.
Did he use the footage? Because what happens is Billy and Freddy make a YouTube channel, and they get a big following because of it. So
they could have used that, but I don't think they even
I don't know
explained it.
how. They didn't explain how Savannah found him, I don't believe,
Shazam,
unless we're just forgetting it.
You can see in the trailers, and if you haven't seen them, Shazam is showing off, using his powers to impress people. He ends up striking the tire of a bus on an overpass. The bus falls, and he saves the people from inside the bus. At that point, Freddy shows up, and he's real mad at Billy for doing all this and for using his powers like he shouldn't. And then Savannah shows up.
Can we break away for a second? It's going to be quick. The way Billy was using his powers initially to get money, to look at strippers, to just do these crazy stupid things, like he really did use his powers as like a street performer to make money and so on and so forth. That was in the comics. Because
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm just saying, like, to see how accurate they portrayed that aspect of Billy. I appreciated that.
Yeah, that was
because
good.
it did take like a bit of learning and motivation for Billy to actually be a superhero.
Right.
And they did show that very well.
Now Savannah shows up and starts beating the crap out of Shazam for reasons of trying to take his power as well. He wants Billy to give up his power and give them to Savannah, which apparently he knows he can do.
So he does know that he can do it.
The transfer from Shazam to...
Yeah. So Savannah has his own motivations in which the wizard already told him that he wasn't good enough to be the champion, and then he finds out later that another kid was chosen to be champion. Right. He's like, well, I want that.
Yeah.
And
we come to, after a fairly good fight scene, or Billy trying to run away from him. It's funny. There's a Batman reference.
Yeah.
Kind of. Come to the part that is my least favorite in the movie. When Billy turns back into the child form of Billy and starts running away, Savannah looks through this crowd and can't see him anymore. Meaning to me that they took away the one power Savannah should have.
Yeah.
Is having magic sight, or being able to see magic.
They give him the eye, but they don't actually make it the eye of all-seeing magic.
No, he cannot.
I don't think that's actually what it's called.
No.
But yeah, they take away his one power, and they don't display his superior intellect.
No.
So they
made him an entirely different person.
He was an avatar for the
the
Sins. Yeah, that was it. So yeah, I didn't like that. I'm wondering if maybe the magic doesn't show in Billy, like if he turns into a child.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, because maybe he can't see him as a child either if he turns into or in the comics when he turns into a child. I don't know that. They don't really explain that he is able to see magic either. No. Which takes us back to the fact that the Sins are like, hey, there's a new champion, let's go find him. He's like, all right, found him.
Yeah.
Like there was no searching. He dedicated his entire life to find the Rock of Eternity, but in a snap, he's just like, hey, I got him. So, like I said, I don't know if that was contributed by the fact that they were popular on the internet, if it was because of the news feed and stuff. But the most popular news segment was when Billy and Freddy were arguing,
yeah.
which was 2 seconds before Savannah shows up.
And that led to Savannah finding the foster family and holding them hostage.
Yeah. So Savannah does recognize Freddy, and he takes Freddy hostage. Freddy gives up the location of his group home, and so Savannah takes, like you said, takes the whole foster family hostage, excluding the parents.
Right.
So then at some point, I forget when it was, but the foster siblings show Billy that, hey, we found your mother. The one tech savvy guy used the internet, Eugene Choi, to find his mother. And so Billy goes and finds his mother. This is where we get to the fact that they changed it. She just didn't want it, and that's when he realizes, like, hey, blood means nothing. It's these people who are willing to accept me that are my real family. And then he goes and
he gets a call from Freddy.
Yeah,
saying that they're kidnapped.
And then so he already has that mindset that, wow, these are really my family. And then just a couple seconds later, he finds out that the villain that he ran away from now holds his family captive. The people who he considers his family captive. Savannah takes him to the Rock of Eternity. Savannah gives Billy an ultimatum. Hey, I have your family. I'm going to hurt them. I'm going to kill them unless you give me your powers.
Right.
Billy chooses his power to give his powers. They go through the Rock of Eternity. And when it's about to happen, Freddy throws a batarang at Savannah.
Yeah.
And this was Billy and Savannah were surrounded by the sins.
Yeah.
And then you see that his cut, or that where the batarang hit, he's actually cut and injured. Yeah. The sins go back in the eye, and he heals. So that's where they reveal that the source of Savannah's powers are actually the sins' powers. Mm-hmm. And Billy notices that himself. So we go to a carnival that the actual main fight happens, and because the siblings know that Billy's Shazam, they aid him, they're there
to help.
They're there with him.
There's one part in that I found strange. When all the kids are together and they're talking about how to defeat him, Mary says, you have to get the sins out of his eye. At no point in that movie did they ever refer to them as the sins, besides when Shazam tells Savannah about them. I don't know if they just missed that in the cut or what.
I don't know.
I didn't like that.
Maybe? I don't know. Did she actually call them sins?
Yes, that was the problem.
I don't remember that. But anyway, the fight ensues, and don't remember in what order it happens, but something occurs in which Billy is about to give Savannah his powers right there with the staff, with the wizard staff, and he instead tricks him. He has this vision of the wizard kind of explaining
that there used to be a council. Yeah,
that there used to be a council of so many people, and then like he remembers that how Shazam gave him the powers. So instead of the wizard saying like, hey, you can bestow powers upon other people, he makes this revelation
that you can.
He's like, yes, I can. And then he kind of makes his
old switcheroo.
His foster siblings, the Shazam family.
Which that was pretty poor to me as well.
Which part?
Savannah's ready to get the powers, and Shazam's like, wait a second. And then he just takes the staff from him and turns around. Like he wouldn't have expected him to try to take the staff from him.
I would think because he was a kid, Savannah himself thought that like, all right, he's finally given up. And because Billy is just a kid,
I suppose you can have that overwhelming villain ego.
Yeah. At first I was like, so he didn't make this revelation before that he can, but then I remembered that it's not all the time that he has this wisdom of Solomon.
Right.
It's he's still a kid. It takes some time, and like he does have it. It's just not there all the time. So I think that's what that was. It was just kind of displaying like, oh, like I made this connection. I can do this. So he makes the Shazam, or he makes his siblings the Shazam family. Part that I didn't understand was that they were kind of going through the same tests that Billy went through.
Yeah.
With like, oh, we have Eugene Choi had the
lightning.
The lightning. You had Darla, who had the speed. Freddy, who had the flight. And at first I thought, I thought that it was like they were trying to give each person their own
section of the powers.
Their own section of the powers, rather than just like depleting all the powers altogether. You all have the same powers, they're just weaker as you all use them.
But it didn't even seem at that rate.
I thought that was clever, that the way they did that.
Was splitting up the powers between them.
Like make their own little lightning symbol Justice League thing.
Yeah.
So they each have their own version of the power. And then Billy obviously has them all. But then at the end, you see them all fly to Billy.
And Billy still fought with his full power with Sivana in a big one-on-one fight later on.
But
so they didn't really play the
using
Shazam.
the 7 deadly sins to split up the Shazam family, that was accurate. So that was
clever.
good.
That was good.
But yeah, it's just they didn't really show the powers of the Shazam family the way they normally would. No. I guess it's just the way they portrayed the powers of the Shazam family, I thought would be a little bit better. I thought that it was a clever take, but then again, they also kind of, in a later scene, a couple minutes later, they just kind of retconned what they just did.
Yeah.
Because if Freddy's the one with the flight, then why...
Everybody shouldn't be flying.
Yeah. So I don't understand how that worked, unless maybe they did siphon the powers, they were diluted, we just didn't recognize it. I don't know. So we get to Shazam family. I did appreciate the fan service with the Shazam family. It was awesome. Just seeing each of the siblings grown up
was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And they all those actors played their smaller roles as well.
Yeah. So, yeah, we get the Shazam family. They separate from Billy because they're each taking on a sin. Sivana notices that he doesn't have powers without the sins.
Right.
So
he keeps
envy in his eye. So Billy notices that he uses his wisdom to trick envy out of Sivana.
Yep.
Thus defeating Sivana, and whatever happens to the sins.
Well, he defeats envy for the most part in the one-on-one battle.
Yeah.
Then Shazam takes Sivana back to the carnival, where he rips that eye out of his head, and all the sins flow back into the eye, and they're held captive once again.
There you go.
There was also the smaller plot, the subplot that we didn't assume, which was the cliche foster family movie. They get together, they're kind of friends. One's like, hey, we're like a family. He's like, no, we're not a family. Oh, I'm upset. End of Act 2. And they're like, oh, you're in danger? We're family. End of Act 3.
Yeah. And they end with that same, like on that same note. All in all, this was a long review. There were a lot of things to get through, but
it was a good movie. There wasn't a whole lot of plot in the meaning of the dynamic between the villain and the hero. There wasn't a lot of dynamic for the villain to be a villain at all. Just thrown in there. But it was not a bad movie.
No. If they would have done the villain the right way, if it would have been Black Adam,
it would have been a great movie.
It probably would have been phenomenal. It's just that there might be something with the studio that they just couldn't do it.
Let's hope.
There was a reason, and I hope it wasn't just that was their first choice. If this was their first choice, then it looks like DC's going back down.
Yeah.
Because they did a great job with Aquaman. They used two of his iconic villains in Aquaman. And then you have Shazam, where they botch one of his D-list villains, and then they botch one of the A-list villains. Well, one of the A-list villains, the 7 Deadly Sins.
Yeah.
So it's almost as if, or it's almost to the effect of making Parallax a storm cloud, a space storm, or making Galactus a space storm. Every time people try to do that sort of thing, where they just try
character change,
it tends not to work out the way they want. So you have Orm and you have Black Manta, who do perfectly, more than fine. And those are based very, very, very close to the comics and source material. And they're like, wow, that did really good. You know what we're going to do? We're going to change it up for the next movie. We're going to ignore it completely.
Now, in one of the after credits scenes for at the end of the Justice League,
let's get this out there. If you're still watching, There are 2 after credit scenes.
That's right.
2. So
Yes. The first after credits scene. In the Justice League, they tease the Legion of Doom, or the Injustice League. Dave had mentioned, or at the end of the Dawn of Justice, they teased Darkseid. So either of those they could have made another tease to.
yeah.
Darkseid, the Injustice League coming together, something. However, Sivana was in a jail cell and visited by a speaking caterpillar.
So the end credit scene, mid credit scene, I guess it would be called, is very underwhelming. And it could just be that you have an inch-long caterpillar talking, and he suggested to be the next big villain.
Yeah.
Disappointing in a couple aspects. One, he's an inch tall. What kind of a threat could he be? For those who know, he is a very, very big threat.
Mr.
He
Mind.
is, I think he has, I don't know what that would be called, not telepathic powers, but he can take control of other people and whatnot. Right. But he is powerful. We would have wanted Black Adam to be teased,
Yeah.
or to continue in with that Legion of Doom Injustice League idea. Problem being is that ever since Justice League did so poorly,
They don't want to do the whole group up.
yeah, they're done trying to group these characters together, which I would say, do it. Just take your time with it.
Like Avengers did.
Avengers had the Captain America, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Avengers.
Right.
We had Batman vs Superman, Man of Steel, Justice League.
Yep. Although
everybody's ready for that.
Kind of include Superman at the end of the movie there too.
They did show that Superman is still around.
Cavill's done.
Apparently Cavill is done. So I don't know who could possibly play him, but he's there. He's there. So are they suggesting that in the mid-credit scene, are they suggesting that Mr. Mind could be like one of those Thanos characters?
That's what I was thinking.
Like, it's just a little glimpse. In the future, he could be a big problem. And then in the next movie, you could have a Superman Shazam movie, which
they would
teaming
fight
him up,
Black
but it's
Adam.
only 2.
That would be terrific.
That would definitely be good, especially because Billy's still very new at being a superhero. Superman is far from being new at being a superhero.
He died.
You can, he died once. Not many people have that experience and live to tell about or talk about it. But so they could, like I said, work into a Superman Shazam film that they do introduce Black Adam into, but it's going to end up riding on Shazam to beat Black Adam,
right? Because
Superman's vulnerability is to magic.
The only other problem that we saw throughout this was towards the end of the movie. It wasn't in the end credit scene yet. Yes, it was. It was in the end credit scene, the very final end credit scene.
Yeah.
They talk about Aquaman, and Freddy knows what kind of powers Aquaman has, and they show that throughout the movie that Aquaman is a prevailing force because Freddy's constantly wearing his shirts, his or Wonder Woman's.
Yeah. So Freddy does wear superhero shirts. He is a fan of superhero shirts. So, and I remember you and your brother had a discussion about that, and you just did not like that at all.
No.
Like,
why would Freddy
for what
know?
Reason would Freddy know of
Why would
Aquaman's,
the world in general know of Aquaman's deeds? It was in some faraway country in Russia that Justice League happened.
2 reasons. Justice League, most likely not the case. He didn't really talk to Fish that often in Justice League. So, 2 reasons, one more likely than the other. Number 1, Freddy knows of Aquaman's things because just as much as we would know about Russia's things, just as much as we know about Mexico's things, we now have to consider that Aquaman is now a king of Atlantis. He rules the seas, and he has a political stance in the world now.
Well,
that's why I had
become a part of the world. Not at the end of Aquaman. They were still kind of keeping themselves secret. They had a big underwater war. He became the king.
Aquaman was supposed to be the link between man and Atlantis, between the surface dwellers and Atlantis, and that's why before we started this, I had you look up how long has passed, how much time has passed. So 2 years has passed. He probably has become a prominent political figure for Atlantis and a liaison for the surface dwellers. Or because of Freddy's vast knowledge of superheroes, maybe he's an omniscient being. Maybe he's like the writer of comic books. If he's a writer of comic books in comic books, he is God. I'm just joking about that one.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Alternatively, he might know because early on, Arthur Curry killed his whole elementary school class when he summoned a shark and the rest of the fish together at the base of the aquarium.
But yeah, so my idea would be that in 2 years' time, I could definitely see Aquaman being portrayed as the link between the surface dwellers and Atlantis.
Yes.
Becoming a prominent political figure and displaying that at some point. There had to have been some Aquaman events rather than him just sitting on the throne for 2 years.
Yeah.
So I would assume that would be where you get into the...
Fair point. I suppose only time will tell.
Yeah. So that's just speculation on my part. Like I said, 2 years as a king, you are probably making some decisions.
Yeah.
And he is you see at the end of Aquaman that he is starting to act like a king. So give it a rating.
I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10.
Everything
about the kids and Shazam and everything right there was great. Just the poor plot and horrible villain design.
Yeah.
Brings it down that far for me.
For me, I would say because of how well they portrayed the characters and did the source material justice, excluding the villains, I would probably say like 7.5 to 8.
Okay.
So it was still very fun. For me, I am a little bit biased because Shazam is one of my favorite characters. Captain Marvel, whatever. He is definitely one of my favorite characters. So ranking my favorite DC movies, Aquaman is still on top. Okay. Then it's Shazam, then it's Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is a far better movie than Shazam.
Yeah.
It's just that I love Shazam.
Okay.
Like, I love Captain Marvel. He's just... That's my bias. So.
Alright, understandable.
Guess that's it.
Yes, it is. Long review. Thanks for staying along if you did. Please leave us a like if you liked that. Subscribe to us and slap that notification bell if you'd like to know more. Comment your thoughts on the Shazam movie and what you thought about it.
Yep. We definitely recommend seeing it. Gave it a 6 out of 10, 7.5 out of 10. And I guess that's it for us.
Otherwise, thanks for watching.